Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Authors on the Air. I'm your host, James Latwell. This is part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network. With us today, we have Adam Hamdy. Adam has a new book out, and it's a burner. You're going to love this one. It's called Deadbeat. And yeah, you're coming all the way from Mauritius to us, so I'm a little bit jealous in the middle of the winter rains we're having here. So welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much, James. Thanks for having me on. Lovely to be here.
It's my pleasure. This was a really fun read. It was different. I think people are really gonna love it. It comes out next week, next Tuesday on the 3rd. Could you tell folks a little bit about Peyton Collard and what he's up against in Deadbeat?
Peyton Collard is up against himself. He is a man who makes terrible decisions in life, and that run of bad decisions started through after an accident, which was well, actually I was going to say it was no fault of his own, but it actually was his own fault. He was driving under the influence and got involved in a serious accident which changed his life and kick-started a series of events that saw him going from being an upstanding decent member of the community into the deadbeat of the title of the book.
Yeah, I mean, you put people right in the story right away when you start off. I mean, the first line in the book is, "My name is Peyton Collard and I'm a killer." I mean, it's right out front, and it starts off as this kind of a confession of, here's what happened, in that accident, but it goes completely dark after that, and it's so much more. I love the way you did that twist on it. Now, you mentioned that Peyton's made mistakes. And it's almost like he wants that one score to make things right again, and his moral compass is being kind of tested a little bit. How did you come up with that kind of a premise to have him jump through?
Well, there were a few things going on at once. I wanted to have a book that was a true crime memoir because true crime is incredibly popular. And when you talk to the families of victims of crime, they have real issues around the popularity of true crime, as you'd expect, because
Right.
We're sensationalizing people's real life trauma and their experiences. And so I wanted to write a book that portrays itself as true crime. And at the same time, I wanted to see, I like setting myself challenges. I wanted to see if I could take a character who has virtually no redeeming qualities. Actually, I said this to somebody the other day, and they said, no, he has no redeeming qualities. I like to think that Peyton does have some redeeming qualities, and that readers, so far, people who've read on NetGalley and had one Goodreads giveaways have responded really well to him, actually. But I wanted a character that was hard to like. I wanted to see if I could take a killer, somebody who murders, and turn them into somebody that people are rooting for. And so I guess in that sense, he's an anti-hero. And I also wanted to have a look at desperation, because we're living in a time where, the economy is a bit awry in the sense that some people are doing really well, but a lot of people are not doing so well. And I wanted to look at what desperation does to people and how it pushes them to extremes.
Yeah, I think you explore that really well with Peyton. Yeah, I mean, he's such a great character, because and I think you're right. There are some redeeming qualities that Peyton has, but you're rooting for him, and he's making these decisions, and you'd like it. Oh God, Peyton, don't do that, don't do that. But yeah, he's going to do that. But yeah, it was fun to watch that progression, and just he's going to make one score, and a lot of it is driven from one of the things that I found appealing about him is he really cares about his daughter and wants to make things right with her. So how did you go about creating that character, and his relationship with Sky? I thought was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think if you speak to most parents, they'll do anything for their kids. It's a natural response to want a better life for your children than you had, and that applies to any profession and most character types and even hardened criminals go sort of soft-centered around their children. So I wanted a really strong motivation for him, and his relationship with Sky. Yeah, I think it's a redeeming quality in him, and he is trying to do better for her than he had for himself. And he was on a decent path in life, and he made this one terrible mistake that's put him on a really ugly and bad path. And
yeah,
that big score that you're talking about, he's trying to get back to the life that he once had. And it's hopefully not many listeners and not many people who read the book will have had such a terrible thing happen in their lives, a terrible mistake. But we've all done things that we wish we could take back. Well, in this book, here's a guy who's trying to take something back, something terrible that he did, but he does it in completely the wrong way, by doing even more terrible things. But I think what you were saying about, oh, please don't do that, Peyton, don't do that. Again, there's a certain inevitability. Sometimes you kind of have a gut feeling about the outcome of something, and you'll still go ahead and do it, even though you know that it's maybe not the right thing, or you have this sense that things aren't going to go quite the way that you hope they will, because we're all inherently optimistic as well. We all that's why casinos exist, because people go in and they think, well, I can beat the odds. The odds are stacked against you, but people still go in there and squander billions and billions of dollars every year in casinos. So we have this optimistic streak in us that will have us act against our better nature, even though we know the chances are things are going to go awry for us.
Yeah, and yeah, you've dropped Peyton right in the middle of that basically a casino in his own mind. Now, you've got great characters in the book. That's one of the things I really appreciate about your writing is you don't have. I've said this to other authors that I respect, and it's you don't have secondary characters. All your characters are there for a reason, and they're well thought out, and you can just feel the interaction and who they are, when they're on the page. That makes Deadbeat. I mean, it's a propulsive read, and you just blow through this thing, and it was just really well done, Adam. My hat's off to you on that.
No, thank you very much.
Now, in case folks don't know and haven't picked up from your accent, you're British. But you've captured LA in a way that a native would. I mean, I'm in Northern California and I'm reading this and it's like, okay, I can picture this. I know some of these areas. How did you pull that off?
I spent a lot of time in addition to writing books. I also write for screen, and I spent a lot of time living in LA. And I think sometimes when you go into a place as an outsider, you see things that people take for granted. So, I would notice things about the city and I'd say, I remember that noticing that LA has a little Ethiopia. And I mentioned it to somebody who'd lived there for, pretty much all their life. And they'd never realized that the city has this. I think you just see things differently as an outsider, and you're paying maybe more attention to things than somebody who grew up there or lives there does, because we become complacent. We just take things for granted. So, and I think if you're an author, as you'll know, you have value. You see value in attention to detail. So if I don't know if you do this, but you go around and you'll mentally take notes, or actually sometimes physically take notes about a place, just because that it's the small touches that make things authentic. So a lot of time living there, a lot of research, and that kind of outsider's perspective on a city, which I think gives you, you just pay more attention to it.
Yeah, no, I thought you covered it really, really well. And it was like, and having, your screenwriting background and having that in LA, that kind of answers that question for me. Cause I was wondering, how did this British guy, capture that culture in LA? Cause unless you've seen it and been there, I mean, it's a different place. So, again, well done there.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to give too much away about the plot of the book, because I mean, there are some twists in here that, it's like, almost broke my neck, because it's like, my God, here's the connection here that everything is coming together with, so how did you kind of come up with this plot that, that Peyton kind of unravels towards the end of the book, where all these people are connected? I mean, this is more than a plotzer pantser kind of thing. This is like, there was some real architecture into this plot to make it hang together. How did you do that?
Yeah, I think with something like that, well, I started with the twist, actually, and then worked back from there. And I think it's one of those things, and again, as you'll know, writing is iterative. So you'll start with certain themes or ideas or a plot, a twist, a story, whatever it is. But then you'll introduce characters, or you'll start with a character and introduce story. You'll introduce a twist. That's not quite working. I'm going to figure this thing out here and figure that thing out there. And you'll slowly bring it all into shape. And but for me, coming up with that architecture started with the twist. And as I was thinking about all these themes, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to do a twist around this? And it all just flowed from that.
Wow. Yeah, no, it really does. It was a nice one, because, a lot of times we read differently as authors, that, we can kind of forecast where things are going to happen and that kind of thing. This one, you really took me for a ride. So I did not see that coming. So, and I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this. By the end of the book, did you think Peyton was a good man?
I still think he was morally compromised. I think he wants to be good, and he just doesn't know how to do it. But yeah, I think at the end of the book, he's in a better place than he started, but he's still there. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a good assessment.
I love it. Now, you mentioned before, you've got, a history of screenwriting and that kind of thing. How does that skill help you write long form fiction?
I think screenwriting, somebody once said, is all about structure. So you kind of understand it's trained into you to understand the importance of structure when you're storytelling. Obviously, with screenwriting, you have so many constraints in that you can't ever get inside without voiceover. You can't get inside people's heads, so you have to show everything, which is a good discipline in storytelling anyway. Show don't tell is one of the fundamentals. So it's a good discipline to get into. So when you're writing, you can get quite, as a screenwriter, you're just trained to get quite a visual style going, but also character. You have 90 minutes or so in features, 52 minutes in hour-long TV to really drive home great characters. And it's just, I think it's something that people underestimate, is how important character is in film and TV, and why character is shown through action. Character is shown through what people do. It's not shown through what people think or what they say. Words are cheap. Thoughts are even cheaper. You show character through action. So if you want to show someone being morally compromised, have them be offered a lot of money to go out and kill people. And then see what they do, put them into difficult situations and see what they do. And I think film and TV is very good at doing that, because it's always about, how can we give audiences something they haven't seen before? How can we do this in as tight and as crisp and direct a way as possible? And how can we keep raising the stakes? How can we put people through people through the grinder? So I think I've learned quite a lot of things from screenwriting that have come into writing novels. What about you? Do you kind of reach into other disciplines for?
I do dabble a little bit. I've done a few screenplays, and to me, it's a different muscle group. It's a completely different discipline. But I think that does, like you mentioned, it does help you really hone in on those aspects of character that are going to be important. And I I hope that's showing up in my novels that way, because I'm a character guy. I'll spend months figuring out who I'm going to be writing about before I actually sit down and write the story. So, um, but Deadbeat, I thought was very cinematically laid out. Are there any nibbles on that for an option anywhere?
Yeah, we've had some interest. So those conversations are sort of ongoing, and it's a natural, I think for a certain type of actor who wants to explore the anti-hero, I think it's a great, the really strong lead. Yeah. So, it's, we've had some good conversations, so that's ongoing.
Good deal. So we're going to finish up with something we call 3 quick hits. And I want you to get into Peyton's headspace, and I'll ask you 3 questions, and let me know what he would say. What's Peyton's favorite cocktail? What does he like to drink? And God knows he does a little drinking in Deadbeat.
I think Peyton's favorite cocktail is an old fashioned.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
How about Peyton's favorite music? What does he listen to?
Oh, before the accident, I think he was quite upbeat and would listen to sort of, he would claim that he would listen to 90s rock groups, but he'd actually be listening to 90s pop, maybe some Laid to Work by Britney Spears or something like that for a real happy sing along in the car. But then afterwards, I think he's going to be into things like Red, and his life's taken a dark turn now, so it's going to be more sad songs. He's in a dark place.
I like that. That really fits. And then finally, what's Peyton's greatest fear?
Oh, I mean, his greatest fear is something terrible happening to his daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think his greatest fear is something terrible happening to his daughter, and for him, it's that he won't be able to undo his mistakes. So yeah, that's him in a nutshell. Good questions.
Thank you. No, and good book. Deadbeat. We've been talking with Adam Hamdy, the author of Deadbeat. This comes out on December 3rd. Folks, people are going to be talking about this book this year, so you're going to want to go out and grab your copy, because Adam's going to take you for a ride. So I think you'll enjoy it.
Thank you very much, James. That's really kind of you to say.
My pleasure. It's very heartfelt. Adam, thanks for taking some time to spend with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on the show, James. Really great pleasure.